Riverside.
All right, good morning, evening, Mr. White.
Good morning, Mrs. Angel.
It's not morning, it's evening. That's confusing. I am couldn't be more excited to be here. Welcome to everyone around the world to Teachers Change Lives podcast. If you're a teacher out there in Australia, welcome back. In Queensland, welcome back to the school year. It's so wonderful to be kicking off with our students. My name is Shaz Angel. As we know, I'm a biology and HPE teacher by trade. I am the incredibly proud principal of Mastery Schools Australia in Queensland, in Springfield. And joining me today, as always, is the talented, handsome, he always tells me to say handsome, Mr. Will White from Melbourne in Australia. How are you doing?
Thanks, Shaz. Great to be here. I have noticed that you've mentioned handsome a couple of times, unprompted, despite what you say. It's in the script. You put it in the script, and I thank you for it. Great to be here.
We're all back at school now. I've been back for a bit longer than you, and
I'm not back yet.
Well, by the time our listeners are hearing this, you're back.
We'll be back. Yes.
So has been for me. It's just been so great to see the kids' little faces, to see all of the students who used to be at my school, and then we've obviously doubled in numbers, and all of our new families and our students, and seeing how well they've settled in has been. It's always the highlight at the start of the year. Who are the new kids? How are they going to go? Who are they going to make friends with? It's a great time to be a teacher. Do you agree?
Very busy time. Absolutely, I do. Lots of excitement. It must be amazing starting back with twice as many students as you had ending last year. Fantastic achievement. And look, that might just add that extra layer of chaos and excitement on top of everything else that would go with the start of the year at a school.
It does. And so, privileged position, I can shout out to the Mastery Schools Australia staff. We had one campus in 2021, two campuses in 2022. There's going to be 4 campuses in 2023. And look out, Australia, many more campuses coming in 2024. So our staff love kids. They care about all learners. They know every single student can learn, and our students are thriving. So thank you to the service that our amazing staff are doing at Mastery Schools Australia. As I know that every principal around Australia and the world would love to be able to say to all of their staff, the work that they're doing is amazing.
Absolutely. Power to you. Great stuff.
So I want to just say a quick thank you to somebody else who cares about teachers and the all around, particularly around Australia. And I believe that Video Pro is actually a worldwide company. So Video Pro has sponsored our show. They care about teachers, they care about students, and they're making sure that our schools all around Australia and the world are interconnected and can have all of the IT and AV equipment required to make sure that students can thrive. So thank you so much to Video Pro for caring about us as we care about teachers and students all around Australia and the world. 300,000 teachers in Australia and 80 million teachers worldwide.
That's a lot.
So if you're listening to this podcast, tag a friend so we can celebrate them.
We want to go a bit further than Spain. We do have a listener in Spain, so hola.
Hola.
Say hola to Miguel. Yes. We want to get more countries on board.
Please do. Spread the word, and so we can celebrate everyone and tell all of your stories. And we have a absolute ripper of a story to share on this episode. I actually couldn't be more excited. This particular inspiring story resonates with what I stand for in education, what Mastery Schools Australia is all about. So we're going to kick off and head very quickly into our inspiring story for today's episode. All right, so I would love to introduce Jenn Trevaskis. I have been drinking. Jenn Trevaskis to the show. Welcome, Jenn.
Yay.
Hello, Jenn.
Thank you.
Can you hear us?
Thank you. Hello. Yes.
It's so good to have you here.
There we go. The studio audience has kicked in.
Thank you.
All right, they're going to get even more excited because we're going to share your story tonight. So Jenn belongs to a very interesting alumni. So the primary school that she attended was Burraragoon Primary School in Perth. She also went to Ringwood Height Primary School in Melbourne. And then she took a very sharp turn and headed many kilometres away as she headed to Baker Elementary School in Pittsburgh, in Pennsylvania in USA. And she also went to Boyce Middle School in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania in USA. The secondary school that she attended was Tintern Grammar School. And then she headed off to university where she completed a Bachelor of Arts and Bachelor of Education at Monash University, and she then completed her Masters of Education in Special Education Needs at Deakin University.
Yes.
I'm out of breath.
There's a lot there. There's more to come too in her biography. Jenn's an educator, a mum, a wife, a lover of theatre, reading, coffee and champagne. So she is a woman after my own heart here. Her happy place is the dance floor at a wedding or backstage in a theatre, probably the best nomination of happy places I've ever seen. Her business, Growth Education Support, is part tutoring, part formal intervention, part therapy, part student and parent carer advocacy. She's qualified and experienced inclusive education teacher, which would formerly be known as special ed. She works one-on-one with students and their families who require learning or behaviour support. She has 28 students this year, ranging from prep to year 12. She works Monday to Friday and then all day Saturday, so that's amazing. Power to you. She presents professional learning for teachers from the needs of individual students, the specifics of certain diagnoses, to broader concepts of inclusion in education. She's passionate about inclusion, particularly in an educational setting, and believes that everybody's growth looks different. Welcome, Jenn. Great to have you on.
It's kind of uncomfortable hearing all that stuff about yourself.
Well, it might be a bit confronting.
It's all a bit much, really.
A little bit much. And look, it's embarrassing of you, I know, but you left off the fact that we worked together for a couple of years.
Look, yes, there was a period of time when I referred to Will as my work husband, which was quite confusing because his real wife's name is Jenn. So
That's
right. It was an awkward time
Jenn,
for some, but yeah.
Jenn and Jenn.
I love it. Oh, Jenn, I thank you for the work that you are doing and the work that you've done, and your vision and just your knowledge that absolutely every child can learn. Every child deserves the right to learn. And I know that you're already making a massive impact in education, and the business that you've set up is having a massive impact on student lives. So I can't wait to hear all about this. Absolutely. And but first of all, we would love to hear from you. So you've had obviously a very well-rounded education yourself by being able to be educated in multiple countries. So that's really exciting. So tell me, who's a teacher that's positively impacted your life?
Well, I've got two there that I've named. One from a student perspective, but then another as an educator. So from a collegiate perspective. So which one do you want to? Let's
start with you as go start with the student, and then we can. So we might. I'm interested to be able to hear in both perspectives from you. So let's start with you as a student.
Sure. So my she was my VCE drama teacher, but I think I had her.
What does VCE stand for?
The Victorian Certificate of Education. So the school leaving year 11 and 12.
Perfect.
HSC, that equivalent. With the greatest name just the greatest teacher name ever, Patricia Yakovlevich.
That is beautiful.
So I'm quite tall. I'm about 6 feet tall, and she was about the same. And she's just like a pipe cleaner of a woman, but she just dressed sort of glamorously and colourfully all the time. She's just the most remarkable person. And so then insert someone who's incredibly passionate about art and creativity into the classroom with motivated students. It was kind of the perfect recipe for engagement.
Brilliance.
And study.
Yeah.
She was ace. And I still occasionally, because my mum still lives near where we went to school, and so occasionally at the shops with mum out near her place, and I'll see her in the supermarket, and she just she stops, she says hi, she remembers everything about your life, stops for a quick update, and wonderful. And I just think about how many other people have that experience of her. Like, I don't believe I'm special. I think she does that for everybody. I think she's got that kind of
and this is the thing, isn't it, Jen, that she possibly taught for many years, and you're still seeing her now, and she remembers you. And so this is the amazing thing about teachers, the number of names and stories that they need to remember. If you just go with names, that's one thing, but having to you're remembering their stories and the intricacies of their lives and those connections, there's so much that needs to happen in that long-term memory to be able to remember all of those things. And that's just a beautiful relationship, and it's a great teacher who can remember so many of those kids and the stories behind their growth and their experience. That's so beautiful. Does she know how does she know that you would name her as the teacher that had the biggest impact on you?
Like, maybe. If
she does now.
She said,
well, we have to turn. Yes.
I think I'm picturing a response from her, and if I were to look in her face and say, you were like the teacher that had the greatest impact on me at high school, she would say something like, of course I did, and then walk away. Like, it'd be like fully, tongue firmly in cheek, but she would have very much like, I don't think that would come as a surprise to her.
That's beautiful. Trix is spectacular. I can already picture her right now.
Yes.
Beautiful. So what about as an educator? So you obviously have a master's in education. So you've worked as a teacher. So tell me about, as an educator, who is the teacher or the educator who's positively impacted your life?
So I feel like, I don't know how he'd respond to this, actually, because I think he'd probably get a little bit uncomfortable. But the wonderful Shane Kamsner is his name, who is currently the principal at my son's school.
That's beautiful.
I worked with him at a secondary school in the learning development department, and he encouraged me to get my master's so that I think he had a job lined up for me that I would have required the master's to do. There's certain assessments and things that you can't conduct without the master's in Victoria, so that he was encouraging me to do that. Mm-hmm. And then I think he had a job lined up for me, and then I took the year off because my son started prep and I needed to be at home. But Shane's he's a psychologist and a teacher. So in a learning development sense, he's just the font of all knowledge. Gentle presence, this incredible, calming, really even-tempered. Like, I don't think I ever saw him flustered. I saw him get angry once, but even then it was just this kind of control, really measured, stayed really articulate, like just incredible emotional regulation.
Beautiful.
But absolutely so encouraging with everybody who worked in that department, with all of the students, like all of those kids had so much respect for him. I did my master's while I was working with him. And the number of times I'd sort of stick my head into his office and say, hey, can I just ask you a question? And, would you say that twice exceptionality is more prevalent in, whatever? And he'd give me as much time as he had. And sometimes that was an hour, sometimes it was 5 minutes. Or sometimes it was, let's make a time and talk about this later. But he never said no. To this day, I spent an hour on the phone with him early term 4 last year. I had a year 12 student doing an unscored year 12 and had some questions about the rules and regulations stuff. And he spent an hour on the phone with me going through the specific rules that I needed to kind of look up and cite, and even gave me some kind of, if you're speaking to the principal at that school, here's the phrase you want to use because this is how you're going to connect, get them to hear what you're trying to say. Just knows his stuff, and he's incredibly generous with his time. And, so to see him, knowing how much of a mentor he is to me, then to see my son in his school it's just a beautiful thing.
Amazing.
I'll divert with a little personal anecdote, but my son was having a rough day one day, and I went to pick him up a little bit early, and Shane was waiting with him, and I said to my son, I was like, "Do you might not remember," because my son was in the kinder when I was working with Shane, and I said, "Mr. Kamsner actually taught you how to use spray and wipe." Like, he got the squirty bottle out and showed you how to hold it and spray the tables, and we wiped down the tables one afternoon or whatever. And my son looked up at him and he said, "Oh, so we've worked together before."
That's great.
And Shane said, "Oh, yes, old teammates. Yes, old teammates. Very good."
Yeah, we've tackled it all. We've done it all together.
He's a great young man, your boy.
So shout out that school, and shout out. So what school is Shane Kamsner the principal of?
So it's a magical place. I like to imagine that it's kind of like a magic toadstool that only people who are looking for it can see it. It's a school called Rossbourne, which is in Hawthorne. That's for neurodivergent children only. And they are 7 to 12. There's only 144 kids in the school in total. So really small classes, really targeted, personalised learning. And it's a remarkable place. My son has struggled. My son is autistic. I actually spoke to him before we sat down to do this and asked my son if it was okay for me to talk about his diagnosis, and he said yes, that would be fine. So all consenting anecdotes here. But he's really, really struggled to connect at school and just manage all of the sensory sort of expectations of a mainstream school. And I was just saying before, he's about to go back next week, and he's excited. He's looking forward to seeing his friends. He's looking forward to finding out who his teachers are. He's keen as mustard. And if you'd said that to me 12 months ago, I would have laughed in your face. Yeah. So it's a magical, magical place. And it's because they know what they're doing, and they're wonderful at their jobs, and they care about the kids. It's not magic. It's hard work and dedication and all of those things.
It's a plan and the right staff and the right programs and all of those things. Absolutely. But I can only imagine it feels like magic for the parents.
As a mum, it feels like magic.
And you're an educator, so you understand everything behind this, but it's hard for mainstream schools to actually deliver on, because for so many things, so many restrictions with in mainstream education, but it does feel like it's magic if you haven't seen it in 7 years of your child's education, and the transformation can just be it's like a light has turned on in children.
It's life-changing. And it's life-changing for our whole family. It's not just like it's for him, which is amazing, and that's great, but it's, just the stress levels in the entire family. It is remarkable when the needs of the individual are being met, how it impacts the people around them.
Absolutely.
It's not rocket science, really.
Then it is. So I'm so glad that you found the magic, and you found the right place for your child to thrive.
Yeah.
Couldn't be happier for him and for you and your whole family. Right.
Yeah. So we taught together at a school, and you made the very courageous decision to branch out with your own business with growth education support. I'm really interested in finding out, and I do know a bit of the backstory, but I wanted you, from your perspective tonight, what gave you the confidence to do that, and how did you come to working out that there's enough of a market for you to grab hold of and to help here?
Well, just kind of blind, unfounded arrogance is probably what gave me the confidence to step in and give it a crack. I do feel confident that I know that I trust myself in this space. So I would describe that I've always had a pretty good radar for the kids with additional needs and being able to kind of be motivated to figure out what it is that they need in a classroom context. That's just it's just a skill that I have, that I've nurtured and developed and whatever. So the idea that I'd be working in this field is not surprising. The reason I felt like I couldn't keep giving that in a school context, because that's a question I get a lot, is like, well, why aren't you just in the learning development department in a school, or why don't you go and work in a specialist school environment or whatever? Is because of all of those rules, and because of all the other things at a school they're important. But where I thrive is in those parent meetings, and where I thrive is in the one-on-one time with the kid, going through the specifics of a task. And if I'm employed as a classroom teacher, that can never be my top priority. There will always be something. There will be yard duty, there will be report writing, there will be staff meetings and assemblies and all of those sorts of things. And I couldn't ever prioritise those things that I am best at in that context. And the idea came from, I took a year off after we worked together. I took a year off with the intention of studying, and then was pregnant, and so didn't do that. But it was the parents in the schoolyard. It was when I was going to pick up my eldest son from school, the number of people who, can I just pick your brain? Hey, the teacher's just told me this about my kid. What do you think about that? And just having those kind of conversations, I'd start then going, yeah, okay, well, I can do some work after school. I'll have a read with your kid, and let's see, give you a bit of a perspective, beyond just what you've been told. And then found myself more and more I've described it before as like acting like a translator. So I'm between the classroom teacher and the parent going, okay, well, mum and dad, this is what the teacher means when they say, struggling to decode their prep level readers and they're in grade 2. This is what that means. And then for the parents to respond as it is perfectly reasonable to do, kind of emotionally, be able to say to a teacher, listen, mum and dad are worried that what you're saying is their kid's not able to learn, or that they're going to fall behind, or whatever. And so that middle ground where teachers have to tread carefully with what they're saying when they've got their professional hat on, and sometimes it's towing a party line, maybe. Sometimes it's just watching, protecting yourself. You don't want to say something that you can't kind of take back, or say something that could be misinterpreted. But then also for families who just don't know what to ask. And so they come in going, well, what does this mean? And the teacher says, well, I've told you. And they're kind of this stalemate situation. And so finding myself often as the third wheel in those conversations, but having success with it and going, you just need someone who can say, no, what she's saying is blah. Oh, okay, yeah. Or, and so that then, I picked up sort of 4 or 5 students who became clients, who are still students of mine now, picked them up in that year while I was cooking a baby. And then, just stuck with it and kind of then picked up more. And honestly, most of my advertising is word of mouth. I do a social media post every now and again, but the number of people who contact me and they say, oh, my friend such and such put me onto you. And, it's just the relational aspect of it. And I've got the privilege of being able to go a little bit closer with families than a classroom teacher could.
Absolutely, and the knowledge as well. So what the experience as a teacher is, and and all of the additional demands, and then they've got the 28 kids in the class, and so there's never I don't want every child in my class to learn, but often there's a time issue, and there's often I didn't learn this at university. How do I help this person? And I don't want, but I don't want to tell the parent, I don't actually know. I want to, but I don't know what to do with your child. So without a doubt, it takes a village to raise a child. It most certainly takes a village to educate a child. It sounds to me like you're the middle person, because the parents have got the best of intentions and the teacher has the best of intentions. But then sometimes our defense mechanisms go up that then stop us from being able to communicate really effectively. So it sounds to me like you're breaking all of that down so that we can actually have a real conversation about the most important person in this conversation, which is that kid, that little sweet kid that's sitting in front of us who just wants to be able to read and just wants to be able to do his math and make friends and do all of those things that will help him to thrive. Does that sound right?
A step beyond that, because we've talked a lot, exactly, as you've just said. Yeah, absolutely. We've talked a lot about all the adults in that equation. The beauty of the work I do with the kids is that so much of my aim is to be working these kids towards being able to self-advocate.
Absolutely.
So that they understand themselves as a learner and can articulate in a classroom, no, I actually need you to write that down for me. Like I can't take it in listening. I need you to write down the instructions, or I do need you to show me again. And it's not because I wasn't listening. I need,
I need 24 to 40 repetitions. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Or just highlight it for me. Can you highlight it for me, please? Like it's my goal. I kind of like to think of myself as this. I don't know how this sounds when I say it out loud. I like to think of myself a bit like Mary Poppins. Like I'll leave when you don't need me anymore. I want to work with you until you don't need me anymore. I would love to be redundant. I would love to not be needed. Yeah. And so I've got kids who, a student of mine this year is in year 9, and I've worked with her since she was in grade 4. I'll stay with her until year 12 if that's what her family want. But I feel like I might be able to start stepping back, and that's just it's so
beautiful.
Cool.
Like that's amazing.
Those connections are happening, and she's owning it, and she's, understands herself, and is, even just things like selecting subjects at high school that play to her strengths, and she knows that she can drop maths at the end of next year, and we're both very excited about that. But she's, she doesn't have to suffer through that anymore because it's just too hard, and it's not how she learns. But she won't need me. There will come a point where she doesn't need me to hold her hand, and that's ace. I love that.
Yeah, that's what you want. I love that you want to make yourself redundant. Because there's so that you can give each of the kids that you're working with the time that they need. And I know that there's so many kids that need somebody, need a Jenn in their life to be able to help them to find the words and help to break down those barriers so that the parents can do the work that they want to do and the teachers can do the work that they want to do so that they can help every child thrive.
Exactly.
Oh, Jenn, I'm so glad that you've made these
simple.
Great. Yeah.
But just empower the student. That's it. That's all you have to do.
So, but it must have been a difficult decision though to choose to leave traditional education with all of your great education behind you. So you had the blind faith. So was it difficult, or did you just know that this was a gap out there that needed to be filled, and you knew that you could fill it?
I knew it was a gap, and I knew there was a market, and I know from a parent perspective that there needs to be, like it's one thing if you need to go and see a psychologist or a speech therapist or an occupational therapist. There's kind of skills-based, skill building, capacity building, incredibly important services. They also cost like $250 an hour, and you have to wait 6 months to get into them. So I knew there was work available to be a kind of a launch pad to some of those other allied health services. I knew that would be there. that the work would be there. But I also just, when I think about my first year in a classroom was 2004. I taught grade 1, and I think I've done my maths right. Those kids would be 24, 25 this year, which makes me feel a little bit sick. But anyway,
I'm gonna drink to that, actually, Jen.
I'll drink to that.
Yeah.
I think I've got other students, by nature of having been in secondary schools as well, I would have students who are now older than that as well, but because I got to them later in their life, like, I don't know. Anyway, I should map it all out. Anyway, not the point of the story. I've lost my train of thought. I've distracted myself with telling anecdotes. I when I reflect on my teaching career, I have an immense frustration with the system. And I've always been, even when I was, like, so my start of my career, I was a primary school teacher, classroom generalist. But I was always the teacher who, this child just needs a bit more TLC this year, or this child really needs an empathetic teacher. This child needs someone who's really patient. I always had those kids. And so I had one year where like 14 out of 26 kids were all in reading recovery. And, there were 3 kids who were at standard at the start of the year. And that was the student who ended up in my classroom, and they were beautiful and I loved them and we all had a great time and it was wonderful. But I kept attracting these kids who needed more different attention, and so would be frustrated by the system frequently because there's this need's not the right word. I can't think of the right word, but just this kind of push to get all those kids ticking the boxes and make sure by the end of the year that every kid has ticked all those boxes, and make sure that if they haven't ticked the boxes, you've talked to the parents and you've explained to them how you're going to get them to tick those boxes in the next 6 months, and just that kind of pressure to square pegs in round holes, right? And I'd be looking at these kids going...
pushing forward with the same things in place and just keep pushing forward, yes.
And going, well, so why can't I just do it differently? And every school going, oh, but you can't. And now, the longer I've spent in the biz, the more I know, actually, you can, and you really can. There are some rules that, there are loopholes everywhere, but also within the guidelines of what the government, tells the education system to do, there is absolutely capacity to do things differently. It's most often that teachers don't know they're allowed to.
Yes, they don't know. And they don't know they're allowed to or what to do. Like, they want to, but what exactly. Can I do, and what will I do how can I make it different for this child to thrive? No, it's rarely, I would say it's rarely, if ever, because I do believe that teachers want to change lives. Teachers are changing lives. And every student deserves for their life to be changed, but not always do teachers know how to change every kid's life for the better. So they just don't know, and of course they don't know because they can't learn all of that at education at university.
In my experience, it's not a lack of willingness from teachers. No, it's not a lack of willingness. It's a lack of knowledge for sure, a lack of training, lack of knowledge, but also it's often a precedent thing too. It's like, we've never done that before. And you go, but that doesn't mean you can't do it now. It's just not the way you've always done it. So reflecting on my, 20, almost 20 years as a teacher, anytime I've been employed in a classroom, I've noticed all of the frustrations about the system. And so getting out of the system was absolutely the right thing for me, because now I just need to be Jen. I don't answer to anybody really.
There's no company line to toe. There's no system to say that you support, that's placed upon you and the students. But you're right. You need to be really, really cognizant of the rules that are in place, and you need to be a Shane Campsler. You need to be a Jenn Trevaskis. You need to have that knowledge and understanding, because the will is there. I think you're right, but you need to have that knowledge and understanding of how it works. And when you were speaking then, Jen, I was reminded of a time when we were together, and I was in the capacity of head of Year 10, and we were talking about certain students and what we would do, but it just wasn't feasible, like from the school's perspective? We just hit a brick wall time and time again.
Lots of brick walls. I was going to say exactly that. Lots and lots of brick walls, and lots of, like, we'll write the proposal for how it's going to be, and, you know, line out a budget and do this sort of stuff. And then a term has gone and you go, well, if I'd just been able to, and what we're talking about is not revolutionary. We don't want to build a new building. We don't want to take them out, you know, to dig the road up or something. Like, we're not doing something that requires grand permissions or money or whatever. We just want to deliver the program differently.
What is right for the student. Yeah. What the student wants, needs, but doesn't know that he or she wants or needs.
And what's right for the student isn't right for all of the students. So there's got to be but so I guess there's mainstream education, and there does and lots of students do fall under that umbrella, and we can't. So, you know, there's finances caught up in this, and I guess I'm putting my principal hat on here. So there is kind of a system that does work for a lot of students. Yeah. A lot of students, and so many students can thrive in that system. And then I talk about the rule of ones. And so then we also need to be able to accommodate and facilitate and always have an equal amount of time to consider the rule of ones. And that might be totally individualized and personalized, and we can't be surprised by that. Oh, gee, I wasn't expecting a rule of ones. Every school has a rule of ones. So I'm sure that Rossbourne, which is catering for neurodiverse kids, has a rule, like it has a rule of ones. My school, that's catering for kids who've fallen behind in their education and for them to thrive, we've got our system, and then we've got our rule of ones. So it can't be a surprise in education. There's got to be, we've got to be able to be able to work towards our rule of ones.
That too, it can't be a surprise. The cohort that we're kind of reflecting on, I'm pretty confident we're thinking about exactly, I'm picturing those
I see them too.
Those fabulous students that make our lives.
I learned a lot that year with those kids in Year 10. I learned a lot. That was it was a growth year for me, no question. But that cohort of kids had been together and in that school. This was their 4th year. And so, we're shocked that these kids with low literacy levels and low engagement and all this sort of stuff, Year 10, they're pushing back and they're falling behind and they're whatever. And we're like, are you kidding?
What is this boundary pushing that you people are engaged in? You know, step back in line. What are you doing?
Right. And so when, like, punitive measures are the only measures these kids have experienced, and we're going, hey, maybe we go a little bit more, like, talk to them about what they want and how they'd like to, be part of the conversation. No, that's not the
No. It's like watching a train wreck in slow motion. I mean, it's so predictable. We can see it happening. And some of the conversations we had, Jen, around this were just, looking back at that time now, it's, I'm so proud that you've chosen a direction that is, fixing this, like actually empowering these students for whom, the general schooling system isn't supporting, because the job of these 80 million teachers worldwide is to teach all students, not just the X amount that fit into the one-size-fits-all rubbish.
Absolutely, yes.
Yep.
Absolutely. And I fundamentally believe that those 80 million teachers out there want every one of those kids to be able to learn. They absolutely fundamentally want every single one of those kids in front of them to learn.
Of course,
but then those rule of ones, they're complex, and it's not by the book, and you can't put a plan in place and then expect that plan to just definitely work. You got to have plan A, and then you got to be willing to go, hey, that wasn't the right plan. What's plan B? And how am I gonna bring the student into this, and how am I going to learn more, and who am I going to learn it from? And most definitely those kids, the rule of ones, it takes a village. It takes an absolute enormous village, and people being willing to go, I don't know, help me. What else can I know about you and your child, and what can we do differently for your student to help them thrive?
Mm-hmm.
You are doing amazing work. So how you're obviously a courageous educator, Jen, and I could talk to you for days, and I will be continuing this conversation after this podcast, most certainly. So tell us, how would people get in touch with you if they wanted to get in touch with you?
Yes, as said previously, website coming. It's not.
Stay tuned.
Ready, but it's coming. Stay tuned. Watch this space. Yep. But you can find me on Facebook and Instagram under Growth Education Support. My logo is a little pencil with a leaf sticking out of it, so you'll know you found me when you see that. I'm not super active, and I need to be on the socials. But if you message through either Insta or Facebook, I'm pretty quick to respond. So
love it. So Growth Education Support on Instagram or Facebook is the initial first best place to find you. Yeah. And our long-time listeners, as your website develops, they will be able to, we'll let everybody know. You let us know when your website is up and functional, and we will send it out to our listeners, because I know that in every school and in every single classroom around the world, we know there are neurodiverse kids in those classes who might be diagnosed, and there's going to be 3 times more kids who are not diagnosed with anything, and need our support and need our lateral thinking, and need that village to be able to get on board and help out.
Absolutely.
All right. So you're not off the hook yet, though, Jen. We do a little thing with our inspiring educators, where we let you beat Mr. White in the alphabet game, or whatever.
Easy peasy.
I am.
Perfect. Whatever will be.
This isn't a lay down misère. I'm going to push back and win one of these days.
Yeah,
we'll see it. All right, so let's do a score check.
Do we must?
I feel like we should. I don't know. I'm not good with numbers. What do you think the score check is, Whiteman?
Oh, I can't remember.
It's 1-0 to our inspiring stories, in case you're wondering. All right. This is the way it works, Jen. I'm going to give you a subject, and a letter, and you're going to give me an answer to that. For example,
it's categories. It's categories.
It's
isn't
categories.
That's basically what it is. Yep.
I believe so. So I'm going to say, for example, name something on a teacher's desk starting with E. And you would
envelope
think very quickly, and you would say envelope. Exactly right.
Electric calculator.
I would also take that, but I would take Jen's envelope first, because she quite clearly said it. Yes.
Yes.
All right. We all understand the game. All right. Here we go.
These better be good questions.
I've been working for days on this question.
I don't believe that's the case.
All right. Are we ready? Are you right, Jenny? Jen?
Ready to go.
You are ready. All right.
Ready.
Here we go. All right. Name a vegetable starting with E.
Eggplant. What?
Oh, just a second. I'm going to listen. You did. You absolutely did. It came through. I'm just going to listen to the replay. Just a second. I'm just pressing some buttons.
I'm pretty confident.
So I can hear it back.
I got the bob of the head for sure.
Eggplant.
So that's me. That's my voice.
All right.
That's
so the point goes to. I think we just got from our producer. He has said that was the producer. Our producer thinking it's profound. He said that point goes to Jen.
Oh, all right. It's a stitch up. It's a stitch up.
When you listen back to this,
I know. You'll do some audio wizardry, and all of a sudden,
no, it was. Some might say dead tie, but the producer has said definitely the point goes to Jen.
Okay.
All right, here we go. Are we ready?
Ready.
Name something that you would find in a theatre starting with D.
Director.
Oh, yeah. Stuff. I was going to say dancer.
I'm so disappointed. The amount of time you spend in a theatre. Oh boy.
All right. So our producer
I'm happy
says.
with
Yeah, okay. That point definitely goes to Mr. White. Disappointingly.
Shame.
All right.
Well, director of choreography would have been also accepted, I'm sure.
I don't think that's a word. I don't think that's a title.
Okay.
All right. Tiebreaker. Here we go. Tiebreaker. Here we go. All right. Name something to do in Pennsylvania starting with P.
Pirates game.
I was
baseball team.
Perfect roll.
Oh, that's good.
There you go.
That's
winner.
Good.
You know what? I don't have a clue. But Jen, I'm sure that there is a Pirates game. I will look it up later. I am certain
they're the baseball team.
Pennsylvania Pirates.
I could have
said
the Penguins as well. That's the hockey team, the NHL team.
You would have got double points.
That's right. So I did do a little bit of research, and I did know there was lots of things in P. Or you could have even said the Pennsylvanian enter anything here, but. I'm going to take. I'm taking the Pirates.
Right.
And that is
more questions. More questions.
No. That's just a solid win to Jen.
Is that it?
That's it. Yeah, two versus one. That's how maths works, Mr. White.
Well, I'm an English teacher.
You're an English teacher.
Well done, Jen. Good work.
Well done. So I guess that score is 2-0 now to our inspiring teachers and our inspiring stories. All right, so before we let you go, Jen, tell me again what your socials are so that our listeners can check in on your socials.
So on both Facebook and Instagram, I'm just Growth Education Support. I think
Growth.
It's all one word even. No spaces.
Love it. Growth Education Support on Instagram and Facebook. So to our listeners out there on Teachers Change Lives podcast, you can find us on Instagram. You can find us on Facebook. So Teachers Change Lives podcast. We're picking up speed on the TikTok, Mr. White. The TikTok is quite liking us right now. So it is TCL podcast _podcast, I believe, on the TikTok, and they're quite enjoying our teaching tales and our wisecracks, which is very cool. And we're also on YouTube and on all all of the podcasting platforms. So please, wherever you are listening to us right now, subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss an episode, and give us a 5-star rating.
Yep.
Or you could leave us a review. Is anybody saying anything about us, Mr. White? My goodness, I wish I hadn't asked you that question, because if the answer is no...
Well, it's okay. You say so many people have said so many great things. Let me just pluck one out at random here. Here's one. Shaz and Mr. White have a great vibe brewing here. Witty banter discussing meaningful work. Great combo. Keep them coming. Thank you, Joe Dan Sykes. Good job.
Oh, thank you so much, Joe. Thanks for listening.
Yes.
Spread the word. If you have a weekly wisecrack that you want to rival Mr. White, then, or if you have a teaching tale, so these are those crazy, wacky, mad stories, I reckon you've got one, Jen, and I can't wait for you to send it through to teacherschangelivespodcast@gmail.com so we can share any of those super cool stories that can only come out of the mouths of children, where they say the craziest things. So we would love you to send that through. Thank you so much, Jen, for sharing your story today and the amazing work that you're doing with kids.
Thanks, Jen. Great stuff.
Thanks for inviting me. It's been fun.
Anytime. We might have to have you on again for a sequel.
I love it.
Thank you also to Video Pro for providing our awesome recording equipment. Thank you for caring about teachers and for supporting the ability to celebrate the great work that teachers do.
I couldn't agree more. I want to say a massive shout out and thank you to any of our teachers out there working in special assistance schools, working with our beautifully biodiverse kids who are just adding such value to this world. Amazing learners, very capable learners. I also want to shout out their parents, because I know it's a complicated, really complicated world to navigate, and you're doing an amazing job. And thank you. You're the greatest advocate for your child and these students, and your schools want to connect with you. And thank you, Jen, once again for being that conduit between those families and the schools, so that we can make sure that the messages aren't distorted along the way, and that we can make sure that every child can thrive in all of our schools. You're a legend, Jen. Mr. White, you are a legend.
You're a legend, Chaz.
Stop it.
Stop it.
You stop it. All right. We will see you all next week. Thank you so much. Love you, teachers. Keep up the good work.
Teachers.
See you, Jen. Bye.
Bye-bye.